are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Tempest leads 1-0. Time to see if Dignitas can bring it back or if Tempest can look strong here and hold down the game. The interesting thing about that, Dread, when you actually went into that game one, is that Team Dignitas, up until the medevac point, you know, they'd already killed a keep. They were still looking in an okay position. So it's not like they had to go for that kind of play. Is that fair?
I think it's fair to say that they didn't have to take that maneuver, but I also I can see the thought process. I don't look at that as the riskiest core decision I've ever seen out of all competitive heroes, but I did feel like it was a bit uncharacteristic for a team like Team Dignitas, especially, again, for the consistency and experience that they have here in the competitive scene.
Well, of course, we do need to find out our second battleground as we move on. You can give me thoughts in just a moment, boys, as we're going to have Tempest taking us to Dragonshire.
Dragonshire, a long one here, one that typically actually does lend itself to the EU style, being slow and deliberate. Dignitas has been a little bit more aggressive on execution in the few weeks that we did see them in the last MSV, but they've been working pretty hard on making sure that their macro play has been on points, a bit slower. It's not going to be very high in kills, and we actually saw that in that last game up until that entire core rush where they had 5 wipe. It was actually only 1 kill for Tempest to the 0 of Dignitas, and I would put Dignitas ahead in terms of control of the map.
Well, let's get into it. It's going to be game number 2 at the moment. We have Tempest leading 1-0 in this all-important match here, really to determine kind of the makeup of this group. Skimmy, starting with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting to see. I mean, the head-to-head matchup, this is what the fans want. Both teams saying that they want the EU-Korean game to take place, trying to assess those power levels, as we said at the start of this series. And I mean, it's interesting. The core rush, as the thought process goes, if you are going to commit to that, you need to find that infinite value, that ability to say, look, it's going to be down to 20%. We can go for another back-to-back Hail Mary attempt, and we have that win condition in sight. And you have to start wondering where things go. Tastar is going to be the lock-in here. Threatens the ideal now of Dignitas going for the Trashadar themselves.
We're still sticking with the Trashadar?
I have to have something to walk away with this event from them.
Yeah, he's been on it for a while.
ANZ are already out of the tournament. Somebody needs to remember us.
All right, what are we thinking for Tempest in their first 2 slots?
Immediately, wave clear was the priority on a map like Infernal Shrines. It's Dragonshire, so I would assume to see them go in the same direction. I don't know if I expect a high Johanna by any means, but I wouldn't mind if they try and put priority onto a Rhaegar to try and make up for that.
I wouldn't mind seeing an early Sonya here. I mean, this is Dragonshire. You need that top laner. You need a strong top laner that you can control. I also think Muradin is wonderful on this battleground as well, being able to rotate between the middle top lane, go in and force those fights. But Tempest intends to take away the Tracer themselves here, and they pair it with a Morales.
I mean, I really wanted to see the Muradin personally for the fact that we've seen Honko in the past. He's played that Haymaker style, which is just so exciting. It's all about displacement, and then with the idea of Tracer, you punch them back into Narnia and say, here's a present.
Didn't he say only Haymaker? It was only Haymaker,
he said only
and then
Haymaker.
he said,
That's
like
correct.
every time, only Haymaker.
Isn't this a very interesting statement from Tempest to start off a game 2 draft this early on in the tournament, saying, actually, we're able to adapt on a whim?
It very much is a bold statement, but also, if you look at the past of Tempest, they banned to their opponents in every single series on the maps. They have the least predictable map bans of everyone within their region. They seem to rely on that adaptability within their own region. So immediately I go, I'm not so surprised at the fact that they're doing it within their hero picks within the series. Also, to highlight the fact that Lieutenant Morales Tracer is a very common pairing for teams like MVP Black. So I think they're just, you know, going back to the South Korean roots there and taking a bit of the notes out of MVP Black's page.
I like the fact that they've gone for the Muradin here on Dignitas. The only thing I'm really questioning is the Dahaka. I would have personally preferred Sonya in that top lane and more likely the Brightwing to try and shut down this Tracer, because I say the pick potential really was the biggest factor for me personally, was Sign able to find those kills and allow them to try and snowball for that eventual keep into core push.
So Sonya makes sense if you're wanting to win that lane and dominate it, but what they've done here with the Dahaka pick is, 1, they put in Zillion, a character that he is impressive on, and 2, they've given themselves the ability to dive a Morales. Now you have that flank that's available for you to jump into that back line, have a Dahaka flame on the side. If you can get a Tracer who is trying to be in your back line to come back and help your Morales, you are in a spot where you are already winning the team fight.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Greymane is going to be removed. Not surprised to see Tempest pull away from that. I mean, maybe a little bit now, actually, considering that they still have the opportunity to pick that up for themselves in this next rotation. But their draft overall, with the Lieutenant Morales and Tracer, you know that they're skirmish focused. They pulled very heavily away from what we saw in the first 3 picks in the first game. So how are they going to be able to make up for that in their other roles is really what I'm looking for in this 3-4 from them.
Do you like the ETC ban? I'm thinking the ETC ban, not necessarily a mistake, but I feel like we've seen it in the past. You have the Muradin, you had the Dahaka, you can shut it down so easily with the Stormbolt, with the Isolation, so you're a non-factor. I mean, it sounds like a broken record, but I'm just sort of harping on that idea of Sonya. If Dahaka burrows in, Sonya punishes top.
Against a region like Korea as well, I think it is even kind of worsened by the fact that they have some of the best Tyrael play in the world. Yeah. It synergizes with the Tracer to be able to dive the backline. He's not too poor as that solo laner that we've been considering. It's not as effective as Dahaka by any means, but it is very, very scary. And it synergizes, again, with that Rhaegar. But we do see the commitment to the Sonya.
I do think the ETC has gotten a little bit better in the Muradin matchup because Muradin is now being used aggressively with the heavy impact, trying to force fights, and if you fail that, Muradin has been displayed a couple times in this tournament to have a hard time retreating away from the fight, so an ETC can chase that down. So I don't mind the ban, but I think I agree with you. I would love to see the Tyrael ban or something more Korean-based. Rhaegar and Sonya will be the pickup here for Tempest, so the Sonya we were talking about earlier, now grabbed.
We gotta find what is Dignitas going to synergize here with that Tassadar. Do they go with the standard Bala after the Grey Mane being removed? It looks like that's gonna be the case. No surprise there. And who is the main support? With Rhaegar taken away, that's the biggest avenue with wave clear. So ultimately, it's just up to whatever Bakery really wants to pick up for himself.
Uther used to be the main go-to whenever they would run Tassadar, but they did mention in the past that they have altered the supports a lot.
I think it might be a Brightwing, but I don't like the Brightwing as much. It synergizes, or it helps with dealing with Tracer and Sonya, but I do feel like it's going to struggle here with the large amount of damage output, and more importantly, it's vulnerable to the dive that I'm assuming comes out of that Tyrael.
Ooh.
Like this a lot more.
I had the idea of a Karazim, but I was wondering if you even just go for the Oriole and just dominate that bottom lane and say, look, there's no way you can try and contest this. Karazim looks for the more sort of skirmishy base, and it really promotes the idea that Dahaka wants to brush talk in and force those fights.
To have Karazim to dive onto the Tracer and apply that pressure though, and having the opportunity to go into Divine Palm, and now synergizing with the Tassadar double support, there's a very different game here for Dignitas in their composition compared to the Tracer comp we saw out of Tempest into the last.
Commitment. They can get onto a target and they can eliminate it. That is for sure here, especially post 16 with the wave 100 fists coming in from the Karazim. Final pickup though for Tempest. Need more front line.
It's Arthas or Tyrael is the two things that stand out to me the most for them. Arthas to be able to slow everything down, enable the long sustaining fights. He synergizes pretty well with Appeal on top of Lieutenant Morales. But Tyrael is always my go-to whenever I see a high mobility hero to be able to synergize with him and having that lightning bond opportunity, put him out there, get the damage, they back out and commit to the 4-man and the wave clear with the Johanna.
Tempest was something that we don't know here as they continue to move into Johanna. They are a team that seems to be going straight to it when they get the chance.
I mean, as Dredd said, it still has power on Dragonshire, right? For that 4-man, so it's still a good choice.
It very much is, and if you look at the fact that they have a pretty solid solo laner already within their composition, trying to make sure you put a bit more emphasis into your 4-man, which is going to have the Tracer. She has 0 wave clear until post 13, so it's just like going, well, if we know we're going to do well up on top, make sure we just don't become too big of a problem on bottom, and we always have kill potential because we have ourselves a Tracer.
The only thing with Johanna that I'm always against is it kind of feels like a poor man's Arthas to me. I like the idea that you bring some slowing potential to amplify what Rhaegar already brings with his Earthbind Totem, gives you more sticking power with the Sonya, for example. But, you know, I always feel, why would you go Johanna if you can go Arthas unless you desperately need that wave cliff action?
Don't forget about Ironskin. The ability to actually get through that Murd and the Stormbolt coming in. That's why you go for the Johanna or the Arthas. You have the ability to deal with CC in your own way.
I feel like there's a 80-90% chance it's Palm here for Bakery, and we don't really get to see that much anymore. It used to be a mainstay. It's actually what someone like Bakery built his name on here. So if there's anything for them to try and get them back in against Tempest, surely that has to be a factor here going up against a Tracer who wants to blow someone up with the Sonya to try and kill someone in the backline, right?
I would suggest a Palm coming out from Bakery here in this composition, just because, again, the major win condition for Tempest is going to be that pulse bomb, trying to get the dive, and then I want to highlight that I think Bakery has a bigger responsibility, though, than saving people. I think that's, I mean, every support's job, his job is to make sure that Tracer isn't a problem. She doesn't have the same, or Lieutenant Morales, they can't be sticking together, and he has enough single target damage to where he should be able to zone one of them out, say, this is not going to be a thing, and not let Tracer, you know, get the pew-pew.
I mean, realistically, where is Sign looking to go with this Tracer Pulse Bomb? You're not going to kill Tesla because he can dimensional shift. Muradin is innately beefy with Avatar and Healing Static later on in this game. You've got Dahaka that can just brush, stalk, or burrow, do whatever he needs to get out of harm's way to prevent that threat. Vala really is that go-to, and as soon as Gloom gets unlocked, if that's the choice we see Snitch go towards, that really is the go-to, right? So the Palm could have a big factor in this game.
Trixler, can you tell me why those percentages are a little bit lopsided?
It seems that Dignitas has a few fans up in the mix here.
One or two,
One or two, you know.
Yeah.
They definitely cheering for them. I mean, why not, man? Dignitas has been known as a Korean Slayers. Game 1, before the core rush, things were going pretty well for him.
Don't forget, you can continue to vote over on Twitter as well with the hashtags, as you just saw on screen. Make sure to hashtag HGC as well as @Heroes Esports. It's time now to head over to our commentary team for game number 2 between Team Dignitas and Tempest.
Tempest once again taking Tracer, this time a deny from the potential Tracer Tassadar of Team Dignitas, but this time Dignitas seems like they have even more tools to deal with it.
They have more tools, they have a bit more firepower, I'd say, with this composition. I don't know if it's going to have the effectiveness they want it to. We saw basically almost an identical comp just moments ago in a dramatic game. We'll see what tricks they got this game, though. It's a very different battleground with Dragonshire.
And Bakery returning to Karazim. It's been a little bit. Let's get this game going. Don't forget, Team Dignitas lost game 1, but so too did Roll20 to Red Cannons in the last series. Plenty of time for Team Dignitas to make it up, to get back in this series, to tie it up and take us to game 3. We're headed into Dragonshire for game number 1.
Yeah, it's no different here as Tempest obviously up 1-0, and we will see JPL, of course, on the Muradin. Not the ETC this time. I think the Muradin suits him a little better. And, you know, right now it's going to be all about Snitch on that carry hero on Vala. I analyzed several of his games. It's a very interesting playstyle as he does it slightly different than some of the other EU brethren there, as well as NA. Really going to have a lot of focus on his play this game.
For me, I'm looking at, of course, the Tracer from Sign. There was some questions about why we're seeing so much Johanna from Tempest. Hunkono really does feel comfortable on Johanna. I would argue it's his most comfortable warrior. Hunkono doesn't always play warrior for this team. Sign is traditionally the main warrior, but Tempest recently has gone through some role swaps and are almost taking it to a Gale Force esports approach, where there are 4 flexes and a support. But they've always been doing that with Tracer, especially because Sign is such a capable Tracer player. And so for them making sure that they have Johanna, who is going to supplement them in wave clear just like they did last time, and who also will have that self-cleanse of Iron Skin so that she can try to tank a lot of the damage, to tank the stuns of Muradin, and then get back, like Trixler mentioned.
You make a really good point about their flexibility. It's something they even talked about in their video, as well as how they feel that their hero pools are kind of what makes them who they are. I think sometimes, though, maybe you kind of are not as well practiced on some of the intricacies, and sometimes there can be minor slip-ups, and on a big stage, those will really be glaring holes if that happens, but so far so good as Tempest here, game 2.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Things like seeing H82 play Tychus in their last match of the playoffs, I wasn't as big of a fan, but that's kind of just me liking H82 on Melee, so I'm really excited to see that he's the one playing Sonya. Both Lockdown and H82 can play those melees, and we were seeing some more of Lockdown play, but here, Lockdown will be the assistance, the pocket support for Sign, who is playing Tracer, and then in the top, Rhaegar joining up with Sonya against the Dahaka.
Boy, that jump in there by Bakery is indicative, I think, what will be seen as the game goes on, especially 16. You know, they don't have a ton of reason for the cleansing touch at 16. Instead, we might see a little bit of fist action coming out, getting some burst damage out from Bakery late game. We know he is very active when he's on Karazim.
Yeah, and that is something that has been done against Tracers for a long time. When you look at the Korean region, Merryday was playing a lot of Karazim before he retired on things like Battlefield of Eternity, not just because of the damage that he can do versus Immortals, but because after you force a recall of Tracer, a lot of times there's not heroes who feel safe going in after her, and so she escapes with a sliver of health that's just ridiculous. But then you get somebody like a Karazim who has dashes, who can dash back to either his ally or his teammates, and he's the one who could go in after you see the recall, just like Sign has put on show for us.
Oh yeah, that's the Bakery we like to see. It's, you know, it's kind of the unheralded support of Karazim, and you know, oftentimes people kind of look at him as that secondary support, but you know, there are a few stellar players out there that will, I mean, yes, you have the Tassadar, but in terms of true supports, having Bakery on that is a a pretty surefire thing, but against Tempest, we'll see.
Tempest traditionally tends to lose this map in the laning phase, especially when they're playing versus MVP Black, so it shouldn't be too uncomfortable of a position. And they're playing fine. They're taking back what they need to do. They're making Hankono get aggressive in the mid when they absolutely need to. But this does maybe make it so that Hankono could get lost here as JPL was rotating in, forcing the Iron Skin, and that will do just the same. Just both teams making sure that neither team gets an early Dragonite and the early structure damage, because once you start taking down these towers, keeping control of the lanes gets a whole lot harder, J-How.
Well, I don't know about that Pulse Bomb. But either way, it does get a lot harder, especially when the other team can more easily get those siege camps. So the bottom lane obviously got a bit tougher, as we see the top lane was being dominated there on the side of Tempest, but now it is a much tougher defense because Tracer, single target damage. Morales, well, it's not much damage, period.
Backdoor of the Shrine in the top not only is going to take that away and try to take it away so that Dignitas can regain control of the shrines, but it pulls back the aggression that Rhaegar and Sonya had in the top lane, doing some damage to the towers. I wanted to draw attention earlier to this, but Tempest has a lot of really good merking heroes, where it's sort of limited for Team Dignitas, although Dignitas does have the Monster Hunter Vala, so she can do a lot of effective damage too. But Dignitas recognized that Rhaegar had to go somewhere from the top lane. They come in and they're trying for an invade.
Oh, they're going in there. We see level 7, that heavy impact, almost having an impact, and Bakery trying to finish the job there onto Hyde, unable to do so. And in the middle of that, the camp was returned. Bakery likely, oh, excuse me, we've got a shield there. Parting gets so close there. Bakery lucky to be alive.
Yeah, Bakery wrote return to sender on that gift and sent it right back. He lives, but those parting gifts, those pulse bombs will get even scarier once we get to 10 and Quantum Spike is picked up for Tempest. Because that is when you get the percent health damage, but things like Palm, that's going to be crucial. Drag, hits, pulling H82 in. The minions are there. JPL wants to go in. They're going for the attack.
He wants to go in. He's got a stun. Nice cleanse coming out from Hyde. I think the Dwarf Toss had it landed there onto Rhaegar. They might have had a different primary target. Bakery defending here mid, making sure that no Dragonite is picked up for the moment, as we can see on the minimap, and rotating down. Snitch trying to control that, but very respectable of that Tracer that's looming near.
Yeah, the setup for Tempest has been really nice here, that Vala is scared to go in because of the Tracer and the threat of the Pulse Bomb. And then the rest of the members are stuck here in the mid dealing with that. But finally, Zalia's going to get to the top, and with the Psionic Storm, Dignitas ensures that Tempest don't get the Dragonite yet.
It's a back and forth battle. Snitch taking that Pulse Bomb, surviving through that, but Sign clearly showing that he is no slouch on Tracer. There's a reason they flex so hard. We've got the dive in. They're trying to get on that. Right now, we see Dahaka coming in on the side as well. See if they can get the lockdown onto lockdown. That's going to be the first kill of the game as Morales goes down.
Focus Morales was the key to victory there, and they're continuing the focus in as they take down Tracer. Team Dignitas getting aggressive in game 2, recognizing that they need the victory in this game to make sure they can go to game 3 and still go through with flying colors to the winner's match of the group stage.
Sonya, of course, reclaimed the top. Zalia is going to go ahead and dip on up there. Level 10 is a threat, so we might see the channel. I don't know if they'll be able to get the Dragonite right now. If we look at the mini-map, it looks like Dignitas is in position to grab the first DK of the game. We'll see if they can successfully do so as JPL holds that bottom.
H82 is going to go in with the shield, but pay for it dearly. Are going with the spear, and that was the first of many force walls that will be so annoying for Tempest. Guys, Mene is ridiculous with his force walls. He's aggressive with dimensional shifts. We saw it before. He's going to go in and have the force walls behind, but similarly being aggressive is Tempest, forcing the palm, and then they'll get Mene back at least for now.
I don't know if I've ever seen a Vala health bar delete so quick off just a Tracer. That stem drone went out, and Tracer's like, we saw the pew-pew from Dread at the desk. I'm sure we got a few more pews in there in that few seconds, but the palm was on point.
There'll be a lot more pews when you get sleight of hand at 16 and reduce the time it takes to reload from that. Signed.
Oh, it's going to get him.
Jimmy!
Oh, he's still not going to live, but that's a play. That's a play.
Flashy either way, my dude. Flashy either way.
Oh, that looks so good, too.
I know.
It's almost like, oh, you know, you deserve to die, but it would have looked so good if he had lived.
So what's the damage being dealt from Dignitas? Because this whole time, the Dragon Knight has just been hanging out, taking down towers everywhere. Dignitas subscribing to the approach of getting more experience from those. Not necessarily pushing too hard in either lane, but like we said before, trying to make sure that they're burning down the ammo, taking down structures systematically, so that they can keep back Tempest. Theoretically, it should get easier and easier now every time for Team Dignitas to be able to get Dragon Knights because of the damage they've done structurally.
Yeah, the structure damage, giving that lane control is such a huge point that you made there. We'll see if they can play around it. They also have that global, which we saw had a big impact to that team fight when they got the first 2 picks in the bottom. Now they see themselves up 4-0. They've got a full level lead approaching 13. This is Dignitas' game to see if they can grab a firm hold of it, but Tempest, of course, no slouch when it comes to these team fights. We'll see if they can answer.
Team Dignitas, as the Dragon Knight fell, went to get a double camp set up. Tempest doing what they can to do the same, but Dignitas in the faster rotations are even going to be able to get the bruisers in bottom, which should set them up quite nicely to try to take out that fort that they did a lot of damage to. The split push while the Dragon Knight headed up to the top. They do need to clear out the Giants of Tempest. Tempest recognizing that they're going to need a lot more force here. They'll leave Sonya up the top. They know this fort is most certainly going to go down, but they will at least be set up here for as much defense as they can. But will it cost them is the question.
Boy, it might cost them. We'll see if they can get the tongue on. They do get the tongue. Safeguard's going to be there for the moment. Hankono, however, will not go down. Good recognition. The shield's going to keep Snitch more than healthy, and Dignitas continue with the approach. And you talked about the double camp pushing bottom, Gilly. We've got ourselves a night camp, siege camp. This keep wall is going to be under heavy pressure.
Yeah, that was just such a big push, and Tempest had decided already to put 2 members in the top lane and get that fort there, which will nullify that a bit. But of course, Team Dignitas is going to get more out of this because they still had the camps up and healthy so that they could get 2 towers in front of the keep, which is a far juicier target for these later game Dragon Knights. Top lane, at least, make sure that Tempest can have a footing, a stronghold somewhere on this battleground, but it's rough to lose so much in the bottom lane, especially since that's so often where you end up losing the game on Dragonshire.
Lots of camps that push down there. And, you know, something that stood out to me, you know, what Skimmy was talking about on the desk was about how Pulse Bomb might be against a bunch of unkillable heroes here when we talk about Tassadar, Muradin, and of course Dahaka. Now we see Spell Shield was also picked up by Karazim, prioritizing that palm for the Vala, making sure that you minimize the risk with that setup. So I really like the calls here, but we've got ourselves a fight on here.
Force Wall's so good. Drag coming in, Rain of Vengeance behind that. Hyde running one way, the rest of the team running the other, drawing the aggro, the ire of Team Dignitas, knowing that he'll go down. Top being held, bottom pushed out this entire time by H82 so that he can get the shrine, but in losing Rhaegar and having that power play for Team Dignitas, Tempest are going to have to try to figure out how much they can do here because they're almost against the 16 of Team Dignitas, and they don't have Rhaegar for a little bit longer.
16, obviously scary when you look at this composition, especially Karazim and what the threat that he brings. Will it be the way of the fist coming in here? He's holding that talent. I imagine that when he's ready to pull the trigger, it's coming, and I'm looking for it to come in. But Gilly, we've got ourselves another DK, 16-tier advantage, and Dignitas pushing against Tempest.
I just love the Force Wall pickup here for Mene. It is fairly common for him to get, but against Johanna, who has the self-cleanse of Iron Skin, cleanse isn't going to save you when you have to run all the way up and around the wall, and that burns that time of that and the shielding. And so it's still a setup for Drag to come in after the fact and get a kill on Hankono. Kills greatly in favor of Team Dignitas, experience so much in favor, and they are taking the push to the bottom lane to where they took down the towers, trying to get a keep.
Hankono, what are you doing there? Muradin has spotted you. Iron Skin is out. JPL putting all kinds of pressure, but we got H82 on the backside. He's going to get caught by the Rain of Vengeance, and now we've got JPL going in. Hankono, no Iron Skin available here. He's going to be locked down for the moment.
Locked down. Ancestral Healing doesn't hit. They take him down. No, Johanna for 33 seconds now, and the whole time, Zalia wailing away at the keep as he steps on forward, taking the damage from the team. Sign dives in, but the shielding is there, and Snitch stays alive to the Pulse Bomb.
He stays alive. They're going towards the core. I don't think they can do a whole lot here. Zalia, this isn't game number 1, but he might want to hop on out of there. He is on Dahaka. He's going to walk away. Bakery and team on the retreat. 3-level lead. They got the first keep of the game.
Now, Bakery's level 16 choice does show us that he's far more focused on making sure that he keeps Vala alive. This is a protect the snitch composition if I've ever seen one. It's not about trying to go in and be the hero, the one who gets the Tracer kills. He's still my hero, Jinho.
He went cleansing touch, man. That's not damage. That's saving somebody. I want to see.
All they have to do is keep Vala alive. They must keep Vala alive.
They're doing a really good job so far as they're up 7 kills to 0, Gilly.
They are, and they're still in the lead with the 16. Tempest heads straight to their bruisers to be able to push that lane out against the bruisers of Team Dignitas. But Dignitas, once again, having the faster rotations through from one to the other. They have a double camp. Where do they go along with that? There's only one fort remaining. And why not just make it easier and easier for you to get a Dragon Knight and close out the game maybe with your Storm Talents at 20?
And it's almost a weird position to be in because there's a very debatable macro-style strategy of making sure you take this top fort just for that lane control. It makes it, especially when you have the global. I know Dreadnought's touched upon this. It's a much deeper topic. But getting that fort down, controlling both the top lane, it's kind of like that mid to late game. You want to try and focus that just because of lane and vision control. That way, since they already have the keep down bottom, it makes it so much easier to control the shrines and close out the game. We're going to see that push up top, but down at the bottom, Tempest trying to respond with a push of their own now that they've hit 16.
A very disciplined game from Team Dignitas, which seems to be the theme of the team throughout Part 2. Team Dignitas took second place at BlizzCon 2015, tied for third in 2016, and Tempest barely made it here. Had the fight of their lives versus Mighty, where all but Sign went down and he was able to take out the core with some mercenary camps. Tempest wanting another fight here against Team Dignitas while they're on the same talent tier. Team Dignitas just won't give it to them.
The value of the cleansing touch coming in there, as we saw in Johanna and team, trying to engage there. 19.5, however, Gilly, for Dignitas, as we see that top lane pushed out, vision control all the way top, all the way bottom. They're going to try and wall it out. Tahaka looking for that. I don't think they go here, but they've got another target in mind as Tracer gets deleted.
I think we'll call that one a super deletion and leave it at that. Dragon Knight achieved. Team Dignitas so dangerously close to 20 as Tempest move back to defend. There's no keep in the bottom lane, and that is exactly where Team Dignitas will make their stand.
They're going in. They recognize they don't have to take out that mid wall, take out any more damage of that DK, because there should be minions spawning here momentarily. That will give them the 20 that they need. They hold on for a moment. They've got 50, almost a minute left on this DK. They're looking for a fight. H82 gets booted away, but they turn their eyes towards the core.
There is Dignitas on the core. Bakery moving around to the side. He can do a lot of damage. There's snitches on it too. And the Dragon Knight taking it down one chunk at a time. Team Dignitas ties up the series 1-1 as we head into Game 3.
That was clean, Gilly. That was a clean game. A wonderful draft as well on the side of Dignitas. No shenanigans this game that kind of bit them in game 1, but that puts us to a decisive game 3 coming soon.
I still have to echo what I said before. It was curious to see Team Tempest pick Dragonshire as this battleground, as the choice. It just doesn't really feel like it suits them. You see them losing out against teams in the Korean region a lot because they are more of a teamfight focused team, but I also wonder maybe if the Tassadar first pick was kind of a trap from Dignitas that they set, knowing that Tempest likes to deny Tracer from teams who first picked Tassadar. We'll have to check in with the analyst desk now, but we'll see you for Game 3 shortly.
Thank you very much, guys. Indeed, was game number 1 merely Team Dignitas as the Korean Slayers sharpening their blade with the whetstone? Game number 2 would maybe say so, because that was pretty sturdy there, Trix. Let's start things.
Game much better there for Dignitas. The control that they are known for was shown on full display there, and their ability to secure a couple of kills, but I have to shout out Mane there on the Tassadar. Force wall being utilized multiple times to try and stop the recall back from Tracer so his team could move forward, and that put a lot of pressure on Tempest and actually secured a few of the kills that we saw.
I think there is something to bring up that, Gilly was highlighting, is that this is a map that Tempest picks consistently, but they really do struggle within their own region. One of the worst records that they have, especially considering the sample size of the map. So it is strange that they ended up picking it. And again, the first 3 picks on Infernal Shrines, wave clear, wave clear, wave clear. First 2 of this one, very much team fight, skirmish focus, and it just felt like their priority according to the map, it just kind of felt a little bit off.
It kind of got to the point where we actually saw the adaptation from Johanna to go not for the movement speed, but for the actual wave clear cooldown at level 4. So it was a case of going for that, going for the Burning Rage, saying that's going to be our response to try and bounce between mid and bot, and try